What's up, everybody? Todd here. Welcome back to the channel. So piggybacking off of my last video, I wanted to talk about trigger manipulation. Okay, my previous video is talking about how to improve your grip to shoot faster. So if you haven't yet, go back, check out that video. A lot of people have liked it. Apparently, it's been helping some folks out a lot. So leading and piggybacking off of that, after we have established our grip, we need to know how we're going to manipulate the trigger to shoot aggressively. Now, the two main things that you're probably going to hear people refer to when it comes to trigger manipulation is going to be slapping the trigger and prep and press. Now, just for clarity, dummy round already on the gun, dead gun, okay? Prep and press, let's clarify that. That's going to be prepping the trigger to the wall, okay? Then applying pressure, breaking the shot. Slapping the trigger is going to refer to just pressing straight through the trigger. All right, we have that clarification. Now, when it comes to which method should you use when shooting the gun aggressively, especially for a defensive context, right? I think it's important to analyze what we typically see in self-defense encounters. From what I have examined from body camera footage from law enforcement officers and untrained civilians that are involved in self-defense encounters, the one thing that they always have in common is that they're not prepping and pressing the trigger. They are smashing that trigger, trying to get as many rounds on target as they can. Okay, and ultimately, I think I would say 95% of people that carry a gun are probably going to resort to that in a life-threatening situation. I probably would too, okay? So my take on this is that as well as in the context of practical shooting, right? If that's what I'm going to end up my method of action, right? If I'm going to end up just smashing the trigger, why would I not want to train to shoot in that manner? Now, are there people that can probably shoot prep and press at a high level? Yeah, I'm sure there are, right? There are a lot of people that probably do that. Doesn't work out for me, okay? Personally, for me, I think prep and press adds too much thinking about trigger manipulation instead of just running the trigger, okay? I would rather somebody focus on making sure that they have their grip right. And if your grip is right, you shouldn't have a whole lot of worries in what your trigger finger is doing. Okay, so let's talk about what I do when it comes to manipulating the trigger. Now, there is one thing I will say. I think there are 3 ways you can manipulate the trigger, and this comes from Tom Givens of Rangemaster, and I like the way he puts this, and I reference this in my class all the time. And that's going to be quickly, carefully, and precisely. Now, this doesn't necessarily pertain to just prep and press, okay? I think this very much applies to completely pressing through the trigger. So if I'm shooting the gun quickly, I'm going to need to manipulate the trigger quickly. I'm going to just press through the trigger quickly. If I need to be more careful, smaller size target, I'm just not going to press straight through it as quick. I'm going to just take a little bit more time, but not necessarily stopping it. Like, I'm not stopping at a wall, right? I'm still pressing through that trigger. 25, 30-yard target. What am I going to do? I'm still going to press that trigger, but I'm not stopping at a wall, right? I'm just applying that pressure more precisely and pressing straight through that trigger. Now, when it comes to what our trigger finger should be doing, we need to make sure that it's isolated, okay? A lot of people, I think coaches that say if you're slapping the trigger, that's the reason that you're shooting low left or whatnot. That, to me, that's not trigger manipulation. That is a grip issue, okay? That tends to be tension in the firing hand, not the way that you're pressing the trigger. Now, you can add input into the gun from pressing the trigger, but that tends to lead together with your firing hand. So if I had my finger all the way in here in the gun and I'm trying to make a fist with it, see, I'm going to have tension in my hand and I'm putting input into the gun, okay? we want the trigger to be on the pad of our finger. We should ultimately have some space off the frame here on our trigger reach. Okay, you need to make sure the gun is fitted to you. If you're struggling to reach the trigger, then you need to change your back straps or get a different setup. Okay, so we want the pad on the finger, and all we want to do is isolate it, right? This is all we want our trigger finger to do, is to press it straight to the rear. So when I have it like that, if I'm doing it quickly, as you can see, quickly, there's no movement in the gun. Hardly any input at all. Okay? That's all you need to do. As long as you are pressing this trigger straight to the rear, doesn't matter if you're starting from way off the trigger or if you're right just touching, like just contacting the trigger. You're not going to have any input into the gun. So whenever you start going to shoot aggressively, after you've applied what I talked about in the previous video with your grip, when you're running the gun that quick, you're not going to be prepping and pressing. You're going to be smashing the trigger, okay? And as long as your trigger finger is isolated, you can smash that trigger and not have input into the gun. You're going to have accurate, fast rounds on target. Now, there are some drills. Sorry, there's a mosquito here. There's a drill that we can do to enforce this, okay, to make sure that we are isolating that trigger finger. Now, this is one that I picked up from Mr. Ben Steger. Not taking any of his class, seen it online, applied it in my own dry fire, found out how well it worked for me. Use it all the time, okay? I dry fire this all the time. So all you're going to do, set your gun up for dry fire, have your dry fire target. It can be whatever distance reference, whatever. You're going to get your grip on the gun, have your finger, you can either be just touching it all the way off of the trigger. You can even, if you're law enforcement or something like that, you can always even start from here, okay, up in register. But I would say just start from just touching just off of the trigger, okay? You're going to get your grip, align your sights onto your target. Now you can do this with a timer or without a timer. I don't always use it with a timer, but for example, we're going to say we're doing it with a timer. Okay, set up your timer for a random time. Beep. I'm going to press the trigger. Whenever you hear that beep, you should be pressing through the trigger as quickly as you can. When you do that, you should be paying attention to what your sights are doing. Are they moving? Are they not moving? Ultimately, we want our sights to move little to none at all. Okay, that's telling us that our trigger finger is isolated and that we are just pressing straight through the trigger to the rear of the gun, which ultimately is our goal and what we want to do. Okay, so same thing, press. If I'm doing this at a dry fire target set up for a little bit longer distance, same thing. You can practice this for quickly, carefully, and precisely. Okay, so I'm doing this at 25-yard targets. I'm going to sit there and beep. Okay, I'm just being more careful when I'm pressing through that trigger, but I'm not stopping. Okay, so try that drill out. I definitely recommend to start there. I recommend that you do it all the time. It helps make sure that everything's isolated in line. Now, do I think prep and press is ultimately bad? Not really. If you want to, if you're really worried about trying to put the bullets in the same hole, I mean, that's probably going to be more of a go-to method. I don't think it's a terrible thing for starting shooters off to let them get a feel for their gun and their trigger, to understand the workings of it, of the mechanical features of that trigger, to know like, hey, I have this much slack in the trigger before the gun is going to go off. Now, is that going to be the end all be all in, like, say, a basic class? No, absolutely not. This is just getting you familiar with the gun until we start going into more defensive minded shooting. Okay. If you haven't yet, like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this with your friends if you like what I'm doing. I want to hear what y'all have to say in the comments, right? Get down there and let me know, what do you do with trigger manipulation? Do you slap right through it, or do you prep and press? I want to know what y'all are doing with this. Outside of that, hope everyone has a great week, finds this useful. Stay safe.